was like, I've never been the first person here.
I know, and it's dark.
Yeah, come enjoy like the seating. Got 10 minutes, man. Oh, these are actually kind of comfy chairs.
Oh yeah, I always have to plug in because my computer can't last more than like 10 minutes without.
Oh, man.
I know, like. I got it when I first joined the board, and I think it just reacts the way I. Oh, no, no, no. Don't jump. You don't need them.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's okay.
According to when you got yours. Like, yeah.
You have the gavel?
Deborah. Yeah. You and I.
Gavel.
They're different.
Kim,
we're.
It's because your names are.
It all depends on which shift was on at the first by neighbor. Oh,
No, I think it's
It's been a while.
department.
That is one of my finer creations. I feel
You think?
No, yeah, no.
made that out of a cherry bar.
I think you guys have
Yeah, I
both
think
your
it is
names.
according to the year, but I do think it's according to the year that you joined. So.
Whenever
Yeah.
Brian filled out the form.
It's whatever was the cheapest font that year, is my guess.
Sort of New Hampshire, Vermont. Gavel. All right. Always wanted to do that.
One time a year you get to do that.
All right. Since, wait a minute. we have-
You do?
Okay.
We have 8.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it needs to be
Oh.
2/3?
We have 8 because Gina.
Oh.
Gina's here. We're good. Yeah.
All right.
Gary just. Okay, wait a minute, I gotta get in. Dresden. Ta-da.
The chair anyway.
All right.
How did you do that? Well, I'm switching to a tippy chair because otherwise that'll happen to me.
So this is the second of 3 times during the course of the year that I actually get to be in charge of a meeting for all of about 2 minutes. So it's my pleasure to call to order the March 11th Dresden School Board Organizational and Regular Meeting. And the first order of business we have is to welcome Carrie Russell, our newly elected school board member from Hanover,
Was trying to get online.
and Gina DeCamier, who joined us on the Norwich side. And welcome to the Dresden meeting. You'll get used to the rhythm of having 3 meetings to attend.
And 2 on the same night usually.
Yeah, and our first order of business this evening is to appoint a chair. And so I will accept nominations for board chair. Oh, I'm not sure who had it first. Kelly?
I'll nominate Ben Keeney.
All right, we have a nomination for Ben Keeney. We do not need a second. All those in favor of Ben as the Dresden chair?
Doesn't he have to make a speech?
He will have to make a speech, but he does not need a second. And motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Your job is done, Jay.
Thank you all for your support. I appreciate it. Moving right along to the appointment of the vice chair. This is the person who would fill in for the chair if the chair is not present. Do I hear any nominations for vice chair of the Dresden board?
Can we nominate people who aren't here?
Seems preferred.
That's what they do.
Not a nomination, but just to be clear, it needs to be a board member from Norwich.
I haven't talked to him about this, so I feel weird doing this, but I'm wondering, Michael. Did you have any conversations with him about
No.
Michael Costa?
I'd be.
The only problem is that according to Robert's Rules of Order, the person nominated has to accept the nomination.
Okay, well, then it can't be either, yeah, it can't be Michael. It can't be Garrett because he's not he's not a
chair.
Dresden board. He can,
He can be.
even though he's not a voting person. Well, he's also not here, so he can't accept either.
That narrows it down to 2
There's
people.
2 people.
I mean, I see someone who's very quiet and very confident in the corner.
Big statement to make.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
Have a motion.
Do you motion?
but I own only.
The wink and a nudge.
I-
fine.
All right, then.
I nominate Neil Odell to be vice chair of Dresden.
All those in favor? That is unanimous.
How
Welcome
high can I
back,
raise
Neil.
my hand?
Just to be clear, we seem to be skipping the part where we ask for any other nominations. I'm fine with how that just ended up, but we might want to, for the next one, we might want to take all nominations first and then vote.
And this is why I nominated Neil.
I hear a motion for secretary. Secretary is the person who backs up the chair and vice chair upon their mutual absence. I will point out traditionally, this is a newish member of the board. And this will be happening tonight, both at Dresden and SAU. So if I can politely look either over here or over
Do you
there.
prefer Dresden or SAU?
And the other one might get a leaning in at the U later tonight.
For SAU.
Okay.
I'm happy to be dressed.
I nominate Carrie.
Carrie.
I don't know her last name. I'm doing well that I nominated Carrie.
And Terry, just to ease your mind a little bit, there's really very little to do except to be number 3 in succession.
Yeah, I got a warning.
It has happened, but it's pretty rare.
And maybe
It's-
sign a document.
Yeah,
here.
if we take a bond out, you'll see
Right.
that.
Sign
Can I
a
ask
document.
a logistic question?
course.
Does anyone know what the password for the SAU?
That is
It's
a hard-
this long.
Oh,
It's-
is this what we're
It's
doing?
140 characters that
Oh.
you have to get.
Just sign it as a guest,
Okay.
because then you can just do it with your board email and you make your own, you send it to your phone and they give you a
Okay.
passcode and you're done.
Probably we should put on the list when they come in to sign that we get IT to. do
And
that.
this is a tradition in and of itself. So,
Okay.
That you struggle to get on.
Actually, I think I have the SAU. Okay, thank you. Got it.
You're welcome.
any other nominees for secretary of the Dresden board? Okay. Seeing none, all of those in favor of Carrie Russell? Carrie, would you wish to vote?
Oh, sorry.
It is unanimous. Thank you so much, all. Moving right along to the school board
Yeah.
committees. For those of us who are new, there's a list of committees and board docs. Since not everyone is on board docs yet, I will just rattle them off. Specific to Dresden, because there are some committees that are for different boards. Dresden has its own budget committee, as do all of the boards. There is a Dresden Athletic Advisory Committee, because Dresden handles all the sports. Same thing with middle school sports and co-curricular committee, which we may need to discuss later. The evaluation committee, which is kind of going into how our staff are doing as employees.
Mhm.
And tuition committee, which is related to the tuition fees that outside non-Hanover, non-Norwich students would pay mostly to the high school. There are also liaisons to several internal school committees, including Central Staff Development, CPP, which stands for,
Committee.
Policy and program.
I'm always down with CPP. That's why it's just a matter of time.
You don't do policy.
Right.
Well done.
As well as the finance committee.
Computer wasn't fine.
Now, another thing to keep in mind is that for the board level committees, we control the schedule of those. But a lot of them involve staff, employees, so we try to do it during work hours.
Okay.
So I don't know the work schedules of you guys, and I probably never will, but if there are serious concerns about your ability to be at a meeting during the day with notice,
Mhm.
we might want to give me and other chairs a heads up quietly for them.
Okay.
Kelly, anything to add?
Yeah, a couple things. I don't see council on here.
Yep.
And,
Council is missing.
and second thing, evaluation.
It has been fairly quiet the last couple of years. Jay.
Yeah, it will only be spun up if, by the contract we have to do, we make a change to the evaluation process, or if there's some special reason that we decide we need to convene it.
Okay.
Along with things like negotiations where aren't on this list, but are certainly needed in certain years. Yeah.
And also Hartford area, HAA,
Yep.
BTC, or whatever the initials are.
So this is not a full list.
So many opportunities to be involved.
And for those of you who have the board docs link, there is a draft committee assignment, which I believe is probably just repeating from last year,
Yeah, I think it
although
is.
we've added new members.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is something we're gonna hash out tonight. Perhaps a 4 chairs thing in the future shortly, within maybe 1 or 2 weeks, hopefully.
That's what we said at the Norwich board at least.
Okay, great. So if you're able to look at it, great. And especially for the new board members, please feel free to email me and your relevant chairs opinions on what you want or don't want, have particular expertise in that maybe would be helpful,
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera. Kelly.
Never mind. I just was gonna suggest that we attach that Excel document and then I saw it was right underneath. So yay. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay. Any other comments specific to the committees, knowing we'll hash this out later? No, okay, we'll move right along to the annual policy reminder. This is 2 separate policies that you might want to skim through, especially if you're new. That basically relates to our board member roles and duties and how to cover any conflicts of interest and the definitions of those conflicts of interest, which has been discussed in a great circle among this board for several years. I don't feel I need to go into that in too much detail, but read it if you have not read it yet. Any further comments on that? No, okay, we'll move right along. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, and the hand is raised from someone on Zoom. Oh, can you bring Michael Costa to the? Yep, sorry, that took me a little bit, Michael. Thank you.
Ben? I
Yes.
will add, so, the annual policy reminder, we do, and I don't know, Jay, if you had printed out a copy, like, we do like board members to sign off on that.
Do you recall, do we sign that at Dresden or just at Hanover and Norwich?
I would sign it in all three.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I wouldn't, I would sign it in two. I would sign it in Norwich and Dresden. I would not sign it in Hanover,
How about SAU?
but I would do SAU as well too. I mean, I think it's good practice all around, right?
I don't disagree at all. Do we happen to have printouts or we'll save that for the next meeting, looking to Teresa or Jay?
I don't right now, but I can print it off later.
If you print one, I need copies.
Thank you all for that. And now we'll kind of move on to the usual scheduled meeting. Does anyone have anything they wish to add, change to the agenda tonight? Jay?
I sent an email out to the board. We have on the business requiring discussion, the board survey results. Unfortunately, we only have 3.
Oh, that's hard.
Sorry.
So, it's all right, it's all right. Everybody's
Quietly
busy.
glare at everyone.
I sent a reminder with a new link and I would suggest we table it till next meeting.
Makes sense to me.
I think that is it.
Maybe you're one of 3. We will tell you later. if you are
I don't know
not
who
sure.
did it or didn't. I
It's
can't
all
identify
anonymous.
everybody. It's anonymous, so.
And we would.
Of course, our new folks,
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
go with your heart. Okay, so duly noted, we will table that until the next meeting. And moving right along, anything else for agenda review? Okay, thank you much. We'll move right on to public comment. I do not see any public today in person or on Zoom. So we'll move along for that. We'll have a second chance near the end of the meeting. I also noticed that our high school council representative is not here tonight. Does anyone know if we're expecting Ella at some
She
point?
is probably doing March intensive.
Fair
So
enough.
she's not around.
Okay, we'll look forward to her report next month. Does anyone know if there's anything urgent that she had to tell us?
She's a much intensive too.
Move on and I will look back at the notes. 'Cause-
that motion. Yeah. The one that Bill Murphy done.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to sub in?
There's been discussion about a motion that Bill Murphy brought to council.
You want to remind us who Bill Murphy is? We don't.
Bill Murphy is a longtime member of the social studies department at Hanover High School. I don't want to say how long, because I don't know, but over 60 years.
62 years?
62 years.
And he brought a motion to
As a teacher.
council
As a teacher.
2 weeks ago, at least, that is political in nature and it's engendered quite a bit of conversation about the role of council and at Wednesday's meeting, it was moved to or given to the Committee on Equity. And they're going to talk about it and tweak it so it has more connection and relevance to experience of students in the Dresden School District. And then it will probably come back to the council.
Broadly speaking, what's the subject matter?
The fact that the current administration in Washington DC is anti-democratic and bullying in nature.
All right, board members, prepare yourselves for that one.
Well, I will say that the students are not entirely sure that it is within their purview at all. So the editing might deal with specific reference to climate change or say LGBTQ rights. They want to make it speak to the concerns of students.
Any questions for Deb in this context? Yes, please,
Yeah.
Carrie.
Just clarity, high school council, like, what does that mean in her? in
Great
her-
question.
Yeah,
Oh, the Hanover is historically understood to be a democratic school. And so years ago, back in the 70s, a gentleman named Bob McCarthy did a great deal to establish the current council and its moderator as truly representative of the democratic schools. So they're faculty members, they're community members, there are members from all 4 classes. They make recommendations to the school administration, they pass resolutions, they have a budget that is given to them by the school board, they designate funds for different programs that they offer. They have a number of committees. They've got a curriculum committee, a student life committee. So they're very, very involved. And they meet weekly on Wednesdays, and it's really quite an eye opener to listen to them discuss and consider and change their minds and work through some of the issues that are brought to their attention. The one before this particular motion had to do with closing school on federal elections so that students weren't in the building when people come to vote. It's always lively.
And I'll put up, those meetings are public. You're welcome to attend them. They're Wednesday mornings at 11.
Like 11:10.
Yeah, and I just add, we have a school board member sitting on the council without a vote. And then to be fair, there's a school board, there's a student, a council rep, a student, who sits on our board and they attend all of our meetings and participate, with questions and input. And
But
frankly,
without a vote.
Also in an.
but without, it's,
In the Dresden.
In
Dresden.
She decided not to be here due to March.
Okay.
so this is typically where she would be.
Julie.
Hi, Julie Stevenson. There's also board policy that recognizes council. That's J something, one of those. J, there's 4 letters. And they do, just so you're aware, they can do talk about everything that doesn't deal with state policy, school board policy. They jointly do the handbook with me. And so they're a unicameral system. So when they pass something, it comes to me as the executive branch. I can veto it. They can override my veto. And there's a judicial branch too. So it's supposed to be like our government in terms of a laboratory minus, it's not bicameral, it's unicameral, but so please come. It would be great to have you here.
That is the crash course in how it's done.
Yeah, no,
Please
that's
don't hesitate to
helpful.
ask more
Sorry,
questions.
I will.
And what you mentioned, Jay, we have a long series of policies, each with a number or with a letter abbreviation. And the J series is related specifically to students, which you think would be most of the policies, but actually is not.
And is that separate from a student council, like president, vice
Yes.
president?
They don't have a
Just don't
student
have
council.
that.
They got
It's-
rid of the
it's roughly-
student council.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the middle school has their own council that does not have this same approach. That's
Got it.
kind of.
And then I would just add, when I think of like the student council in my high school, they, ran dances and did sort of like bake sales and fundraisers. And this council has committees that run that. They have a student life committee that do kind of organize some of those things, but it's much more than that. Yeah. Right? So that's sort of a small piece of what they work on. Okay.
It's very impressive to see it in action. Everyone good to move along? Okay. And then we'll move right along to the principal's report from RMS. Mr. Boyle, what's the good word?
Well, I filed a report, so if anybody has any questions on that, I would say that, as an alum of Hanover High School, council is a big part of it. It's kind of a neat, way to get your voice heard, as a student, but also to understand that just standing up and talking is sort of the first part of it, and to actually have to try to work through all of the process of a big change was a really good lesson. And I'd also say I think the only person who is both a graduate when Bill Murphy was here and a student teacher under Bill Murphy when he was teaching. So he's been around for quite a while. And remarkably consistent throughout that entire time. So.
Any questions for Tim on things related to the principal's report or on anything else? Deb?
This isn't a question, but I was over at NCAA's on Thursday morning when this massive crowd of 7th and 8th graders arrived, and all the spectators got a really big kick out of seeing them there. I think that was really wonderful that they could show up.
Yeah, that was a great sort of concerted effort between a parent that we have who actually spent last year in Norway, sort of emailed and said, hey, this happens all the time in Norway. So can you bring the students over? So I put it out to the faculty. We do have the advantage of having a 2-time Nordic skiing Olympian on the faculty in the 7th grade. So she was like, yes. So, We took the 7th grade down at 10 o'clock and the 6th grade down at 12 o'clock, and worked out really well. It was a walking field trip, so we didn't even have to try to park or take a shuttle. And apparently the only person who had any difficulty was one of our ed assistants. So the students all made it down fine. So it was great. It was a great opportunity. I look forward to it coming back in 25 years or whatever it was. I will say that the last time the NCAAs were here, they had a different course. My siblings were actually at the race school at the time, and they had to have a specific discussion about not throwing snowballs at the skiers as they went by. So we didn't have any of that this year. I just wanted to assure everybody that we're fairly well behaved.
That's good to know, reassuring.
Yes.
Anything else for Tim from board members? Thank you much, Tim.
Thank you.
And Julie, any highlights for us?
I have no report because we're doing nothing at the high school. I did not submit one. Sorry.
That's
The-
nice.
In the middle of March intensive, things are going well. I am the office, all parts of it this week.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I usually am participating in one, but this week I was left behind to deal with all the office things. So I have new appreciation for what everybody else does every day. So there's that piece. We're getting ready for the NEAS visit, and they're gonna be visiting with you also. So we'll let you know at some point, or some group of the board, when they're here. It's March 30th, April 1st and 2nd. And the ballooning group would like to do a vignette at some point for you when we're ready for another vignette. But they approached me and they would like, the students and the staff member would like to come and update you on all the stuff there.
We would love to hear from them.
Yeah,
In terms of the NEAS,
yeah.
so with those dates, I'm assuming a couple of us would go to them. Is that the intent?
Yeah, you would come here and they would meet with you in a room to ask you questions. They're just trying to figure out if we're progressing on the goals that we had set. And if you even know what they are, if you feel like we're progressing, chance to say that you think things are going in a direction you don't want or you want, and they'll listen to that too. And they're just trying to talk to all stakeholders and figure out if we're headed in the direction we had wanted to, and if it aligns with NEAS
Great.
goals.
So when you have their schedule, please send it all along
Yeah,
to me and we'll
we're
pass it out.
meeting with them tomorrow online to set it, so we'll let you know.
All right, so we'll for an email from that board members
Yeah.
within a few days, couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yes, Gina?
What is NEAS?
That's a great
Okay,
question.
so it's the Educational Association of Schools and Colleges.
Oh, okay.
And so we get accredited by them. You can
Okay.
do it all the way, any K through 12 school. High schools, you would want to be accredited. For sure, they do middle schools and they do elementary schools, and they are in a 10-year visit cycle. So they do a few visits within those 10 years, and you do reports to update them on how you're doing. And they have a bar that you set your own goals, but then there also is a bar of, like, if you were completely gone rogue. Yeah, you were doing everything that wasn't best practice, and you were like, this is what we're going for. They would say, wait, we have these standards at least that you need to meet, but also they let you infuse some of your own goals and incorporate community ideas and things like that.
Yeah, we had something about adjournment, so.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so it's our accrediting organization.
Got it,
Yeah.
thank you.
And Gina and Karen, I'm loving the questions. Keep them up. We do get a little jargon heavy, so apologies for that.
Yeah, sorry.
And
I will
we'll
ask,
some
I
things.
don't do well with those letter acronyms, yeah. I don't even know what they're called.
Neither does Ben. You're reprising a
I'm
familiar
feeling a
role.
bit nostalgic. Any other questions for Julie on this or anything else? See you, Deb.
I just want to clarify, are you both familiar with March Intensive?
Mhm, I am. My kids are on it right now.
Okay. I mean, I know it's not an acronym.
Okay, good. Anything else?
I just want to invoke the name of Bruce Duncan, former board
Yes.
member who is always counseling us stuff, not to use acronyms without explaining what they are.
All right, we'll move right along then to business requiring discussion, and for board retreat topics. We have an annual retreat that is either indoors or outdoors, with my own personal thoughts on the matter. On a Saturday, it is now Saturday, May 17th from 9 to 1, so please keep your schedule open for that day. I know a handful so typically can't go either due to kids' sports and whatnot. Lisa.
I will be attending Hank's graduation that day,
That's
so
the
I
worst
will not be
excuse
here.
ever.
Yeah.
One down.
I know. Sorry.
Jay, are you gonna miss it too?
I'm not gonna miss it. But I am going to ask the board, so prior to my tenure here, it was practice that we had the administration join the board, at least for part of the retreat.
Mhm.
And because of all the things we have going on right now, I thought it would be a great idea to maybe do that at least for the beginning of the meeting, to have the senior administrative team join you.
I agree in full.
Okay.
Given my capacity first.
Sorry,
This is not a Dresden. retreat.
Sorry,
This is
Tim.
a all boards retreat.
As far as, I suggest my 2 cents for the, retreat topic, I think what is really helpful is to start thinking about, and maybe we take each board separately, but think about what the goals are for each board. I think that if we state them at the beginning, set a deadline, I really think that that's how we got middle school sports across the finish line, as we had a goal, we said by January, we'll, I think if we start thinking about that at the retreat, I think that's a great way to talk about what's important.
And that previous chair was brilliant. I don't know if I can fulfill those gigantic shoes. Right, duly noted and great point. Neil,
I also will be unavailable.
of course.
You know, please. But I do, we are likely to have a more clear picture of where education transformation is headed in Vermont by mid-May.
Okay.
And I think that that should be either a topic just for dissemination with a follow-up then after the end of the legislative session to really dig into what just happened.
Yeah.
Or a broader conversation. And I did find in years past that when we included legislators from both sides of the river, that as long as you structure it,
Mhm.
that could be a helpful exercise.
For those new members we have had, typically state reps, I think is usually the people that come to this retreat, and it's a great chance to kind of get into the weeds on state and occasionally national legislation. Kelly,
What time did you say it was? 9?
9 to 1 on Saturday, May 17th.
Can we just make a note for Brian or whoever manages the schedule to put that in? Because it says 9 to 10. And since it's a weird time, it would be helpful to have
Yeah,
it.
it's often, it seems that when that's, then they kind of do an hour and then just assume.
Which for the regular board meetings, like whatever, but
So if you look at the actual schedule right here, it's.
Oh.
And I would know that I may be in Rhode Island that weekend as well, so.
So maybe we need to pick a different date.
And that's gonna be, it is often assigned.
Yeah, and Marcella's on too.
So that now we're at 4. So, Jay, perhaps maybe we can ask Brian or whomever to do a doodle poll or similar for availability in those, because May is
That feels
brutal
like a
for many
lot.
of us
Yeah.
on weekends. Anyone disagree with that? Gina?
I don't disagree, I agree. I'm curious, do we do anything at this retreat to get to know each other better as
Yes.
board members?
Yes.
Yes, we each prepare a little skit.
Kelly and I sing. And.
The bonding activity does vary year on year, but it includes things like basically who we are, why we're on the board.
Okay.
Certain expertise or skill sets or job stuff we have, what we want to learn about, what strengths, weaknesses we have as a board.
We did a quick Myers-Briggs that year, so.
Okay.
A great point. So Jay will take it internally for a new day or a new option of dates, and we will hear from them hopefully in a couple days. Okay.
That sounds great. I got it in the notes.
All right, any other specific retreat topics you want to talk about besides those illuminated by Kim and Neil? Okay, if you have a specific thing, please feel free to email Jay or your chair. Okay, moving right along to the draft agenda topic template. This is our planned template for next academic year. Most of these are holdovers, and right now we look for things that are missing or should be added in a general planning sense. This is not set in stone. Jamie?
Yeah, so I'll go through it with Ryan and clean up the duplications of financial reports.
Okay.
There's a lot of.
Yeah.
Jay?
And for our new board members, the way this process works is 2 weeks before the next meeting. The board chair, me, Jamie, Robin, and Ryan.
And the principals.
Yeah, and the principals meet to set the agenda for the subsequent meeting. And so typically what happens is that if you have ideas, things you'd like to see on the agenda, any board member can recommend that through your chair. And then they can be considered for the upcoming agenda.
Thank you for that summary. Neil?
So not necessarily for the template, but the template reminded me, I would request of the chair that we have a discussion about March intensive prior to
Yes,
when we reach to make a decision on March intensive.
in terms of the philosophy of March intensive, you mean?
I think, yeah, that's one thing. I mean, not just the philosophy, but the execution as well.
Fair point. That makes sense to me. I don't have any concerns with that. Kim, and then Deb.
Only in support. I mean, I, as the former chair, we had talked about doing it in either April or May of this year to basically have March intensive be freshly done, but then also have enough time to consider. So we had talked about having an agenda item at that point. So
So I'll take it to Jay and Julie and all relevant parties at the next agenda planning meeting. We'll see what makes sense and when it makes sense to do it. Deb?
Oh, I was just gonna say that it's on the calendar to approve in October, so we would need to do it soon.
Any other comments on the template? Okay, thank you much. Folks, move right along to reading of policy. Again, for our new folks, this is a second reading, meaning we have discussed this at the previous meeting. Any alterations were hopefully made. If there were alterations requested, there is a separate policy committee to which I'm coincidentally chair at this exact moment in time, which hopefully will change on Thursday. And we're shaking their heads at me.
We won't have the committee spend.
That reminds me too, if there is a committee meeting scheduled before the 4 chairs reorganization, please assume that nothing has changed in terms of membership for any relevant committees. Deb?
I just want to point out to our new members that a great deal of the policy is the result of a student committee at the high school that has done a climate action plan under the guidance of an incredible faculty member who is retiring, I believe, at the end of this year, and just won a big statewide recognition of her science teaching. But this is a lot of work done on the part of students.
And if you look at this policy, which starts with the letter A, that is in our A series of policies, which are sort of foundational, aspirational, but it's not too big on the detail by design. We also have a separate R series, which is sort of the regulatory aspects of these policies, more like the how does it work rather than the what and the why. So we do not necessarily, we don't approve the R series, although we will occasionally look at them and get into the nitty gritty if it's specifically enough to the board that we need to, but otherwise we leave it up to the administration in terms of the implementation aspects of it. Specific to this policy, which is on sustainability, it's been discussed in great detail at a previous SAU meeting. Usually the SAU board handles the first approach to policies, and then they typically trickle down to the other ones. Each board does approve it after a second reading, assuming that there are no concerns, and it comes to a formal vote. Any comments specifically to the second reading of the sustainability policy? Kelly?
So I like the definitions, my proposal, so of course I have to like it, but I think underneath that where we have the bullet points.
Yep.
I'd love to have just like a header of some sort that says like curriculum goals will include or something like that. Just to show why there's then those bullet points underneath. Does that make sense?
I'm fine with it if others are.
Okay.
I see my head nodding. I think is that it for in terms of suggestions for this policy? Seeing no other concerns, I'm happy to do a vote for as amended, just to kind of keep the ball rolling on that, if that's
It's not
okay
really
with folks.
substantive, it's more.
Right. If there are substantial concerns about a policy, we often bring it back to the policy committee, which has its goal is to do like the line by line, word by word, really nitty gritty stuff. It is often a good place for new board members to be. Not always, but often. And it's a great crash course in sort of
You learn a
learning
lot.
what we do, what we don't do,
True.
and sort of the dance between the board and the administration. So
To add for the public as well, I think, the committee is open to the public,
as are all committees.
right? And I think this is like, when I first joined the board, I had certain ideas about, where we were gonna be down in the, trenches with educational decision-making, all of these things. And there's a lot of that happens in this committee. And then the board is sort of that those deeper discussions, deeper dive discussions, and the board is more, approving a lot of these policies as as they've already been vetted through the committee and the administration. So it is a really interesting committee, I think, takes a little bit of time. And we don't always have, but, and we're grateful to those who are on the committee, very grateful.
That is a great summary of that, and it is, as someone who's on it currently, it is a fun one to be on, it's very thoughtful. Everyone comes to with a lot of planning and nuance, we get a lot of expert opinion from people on staff, students, parents, citizens, all come in. It's very lively, and it's, the boards and the committees, in my personal opinion, do a great job of balancing where the committee are the experts, they get really into the weeds, but we still ask great, hard, needed questions at the board level. And so it is not necessarily, it's not a stamp, but it is great that the committees go into that depth that we can't possibly do at the time we have it at the board level. Any other comments specific to the policy besides Kelly's great idea for a minor amendment? Okay, we'll move right along, and thank you much for all that, members. To review the voting results of what happened at the election. So you'll see if there's a PDF there with all the official stuff specific to Dresden. Does anyone have any concerns or comments on this? And we'll note that the middle school sports passed. So we will work on implementation of that aspects as well. Tim has sent around some great introductory ideas to, I believe, the chairs, and we'll have something floating with that. Kim.
Yeah, sure. Two things. Just really grateful for the public
Yep.
for supporting all of our warrant articles. Really appreciate it. Really looking forward to executing them now. So that's exciting. And a question that I had was just kind of, we had a new venue at Richmond Middle School. Just wanted to ask, maybe in Tim's direction, I guess, just how did it go? Like were there any issues, concerns?
Turnout.
Yeah, turnout was pretty comparable, although I spoke to some of the election folks, volunteers who said it was really nice that Kendall residents could walk to Richmond Middle School. But then they also noticed that
Their bus broke.
Oh. There we go. So that was. But then they also noticed that, maybe certain groups who were in walking distance, like the college students didn't make the trek over, but the total, population, and then of course, I'm just talking to Hanover Psych, that's who I talked to. But, I'm just curious.
I would just say that we were talking today or yesterday, actually, day, and we had a number of people who said we didn't even notice that they were there, short of the gym being closed. So we couldn't use the gym, but it was a nice day, so students went outside and it worked out really well. I will say, just as an aside, the fun thing that happened is we now have the staff divided down the middle between the north parking lot people and the south parking lot people. So that was a pretty funny little endeavor that we had, but it worked out well. I'm not sure that it would work for a bigger vote. I think that was sort of what I talked to Matt Ufford at HPD. He sort of said the same thing, like, we had maybe 1,000, I don't remember, like 1,000 people come to vote.
400.
Well, pretty steady.
Oh, it was in Hanover's of 400 something. You're right.
Yeah.
I pick it back.
So, okay, I mean, it was steady 4 or 5 people. Every time you went in the gym, there were almost always fewer voters than there were workers. So it worked out really well, but if we had to try to run a couple thousand people through it, would be much, much more difficult.
We had more voters in Norwich than Hanover.
And that is pretty.
Because of
That's
our.
consistent.
Got it.
2-1.
Norwich, general.
Not consistent, but what, yeah.
Sorry, it's a different question, so if that one's not closed,
By all means.
I was just wondering if we ever see the breakdown between Hanover and Norwich, and if we're meant to know that or not, or if it's all just squished together
You can
to
give me that,
Dresden.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I would.
No,
No.
so.
Okay.
Number
Kim.
of voters.
Kim,
Not how they voted. Okay, that was my
gavel, gavel,
question.
gavel.
Okay.
Kim, then Neil.
Okay, thank you.
That was it.
Yeah, everyone's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, sorry, that was, but I was looking at the numbers and partly to answer that question, right?
Right.
So, yeah, Dresden requires us to commingle the ballots before they get counted, so we can't tell how are the towns, but you can tease a little bit out by looking at the returns in both Hanover and Norwich and then in Dresden. So in Hanover, turnout was approximately 500, Norwich approximately 900, and in Dresden about 1,300. I was trying to do a little bit more analysis, but in Norwich, the budget passed 611 to 351. And so if you try to maybe bring those numbers forward when you take a look at how the outcome was in Dresden, you could probably
That helps. Figure it
tease out a
yeah.
little bit of.
My question was about the sports and that actually, that helps me understand. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, if you, I was trying to determine like, what does that mean? So Article 2 in Dresden, which was the board salary article, had a very large number of people that just didn't vote yes or no on it.
Yeah.
And I am puzzled by that. I was like, how do I interpret that?
Indifference.
that voting, but just.
Yes, exactly.
It is-
Strong indifference.
Jamie.
So to that point, you don't have to vote on those separate. You can put them into the general fund budget. I don't know why historically it's always been done as a separate warrant article here. Many other school districts don't do it separate. They build it into their main budget.
It's good to know for next year.
And the town of Hanover is similar.
Separates everything.
It's
9 pages of
a
voting.
district.
Just a small thing. I would like to applaud our voters for so few write-ins this time. It was very impressive. Well, some of them that were blank, right? That, I mean, we didn't have anyone running. That's a challenge. But for the others, we had 2 or 3.
Deb with the pointed cough.
Well, it helped that Dartmouth students found it inconvenient
Oh,
to come to the voting place. I would say that virtually every single write-in name was inappropriate.
Oh.
and
Oh,
we'll
wow.
leave that one to that.
Didn't say that.
Any other comments specific to the votes and the results?
Well, the voted except for those.
Julie.
I'm just wondering,
Mom,
I'm just wondering in terms of the March vote, given that it was a similar turnout, I don't think it would be great for a national election and Dartmouth students would be upset if they couldn't vote for other elections, but I don't know if they care about our town one in terms of schools. If we could be consistent and maybe always do this vote at Richmond, and then the other ones, I think we figured out a way to lock the doors in appropriate ways so people can't crash through. It's not convenient. I wish they were all off-site. I think we can do the other ones, but specifically for, it's always gonna be playoff season, and I think we're always gonna be trying to figure this out the last minute and then, switch it and like have to have a meeting about it. So if we could do the town vote, the school vote at Richmond every year would be great for us at the high school to not have to worry about it. And the rest of them we'll put up with until somebody figures out a place off-site that we can do it. But I feel like we've put in some safety measures that feel better to me, that we can post it here and still feel like, okay, PE classes can't meet and things like that, but it doesn't come up against playoff season.
any thoughts on that?
I think we would be fine with that. If there were some issues, just. Obviously, we have way more adults around the building than we usually do. So we had some people in the building who were a little bit concerned by that, but we were actually pretty able to keep everybody segregated. And I'd like to thank the Hanover Police Department for all of the work they did. I'm sure they got calls that they wanted officers there to help people exit Dresden Road at 3 o'clock, which they usually don't, but they did on voting day. And I'm sure people are like, this is great. But yeah, I think and this was our first try at it. I think we could do, I think that would be fun in terms of it. And I know it, people laughed at me when I said, but I think it's good for students to see us doing our part for democracy. I think that's a valid lesson to learn and to teach, to say that, this is what happens when we live in a town like this. This doesn't happen without effort from everybody. So yeah, I'd be on board with that. I don't think, like I said, larger numbers, I think would be chaos. that would be really difficult to do. But the March vote, I don't have a problem with it at all.
Great. Any other comments on this before we move on? That was a topic for in a few months' time. Thanks. We'll move right along then we're gonna skip the board survey results for the previous discussion. And then we have a donation from the Friends of Hanover Norwich Public Schools. Who wants to speak to this?
I'll speak to it. We came to the meeting, Friends of Hanover Norwich Schools. Thank them again for their continued support of innovative programs. The idea is that they basically give seed money for programs that teachers are really interested in starting to see how they work out. In this case, we had $1,300 for 2 different aspects of a new entrepreneurship collective that we've launched at the middle school, thanks to one of our faculty members and her work with Dartmouth in terms of trying to get students involved into what entrepreneurship can mean. It really tied in when we talked to the Friends of Hanover Norwich Schools. It tied into a lot of people in our community who feel that this is something that is really important and can probably move forward. Right now, we have 28th graders in a 3rd quarter elective who signed up for it with really no promise that it was going to be more than that, and we're going to extend it into the 4th quarter. And I really look forward to seeing what this can bring. And there's a lot of excitement from the students and from the community members as well. So thank you to the Friends of Hanover.
And board members, you'll see in the attachment that there's a separate one for Ray that we'll discuss at Ray. And also you'll see in the administrative content, the aspects of the policy specific to this, where we do not necessarily approve a gift of certain kinds anymore. That is a somewhat recent change that went through maybe a year or 2 ago. But we do thank the Friends of Hanover and Norwich Schools for their generous donation in this regard. Any other comments or thoughts to Tim or anyone else about this? Great. Thank you, folks. Along with the business requiring action, do I hear a consent motion related to the minutes, the non-public minutes, and the sustainability policy as amended? For those who wish to make a motion, and for new board members, for stuff like this where it's fairly boilerplate, I'm making that assumption of the policy. We can make a consent motion to sort of do all that in one. Previously, when this was going like A through L, it became very tedious for sort of boilerplate aspects. Kelly.
Move to approve items B, C, and D by consent, and I also have a question before we go.
Do you have an amendment for the policy as amended?
Oh, yes, as amended.
Tara, then Deb, then Lisa. Oh my.
Oh,
No, just to second it.
Oh, second, phew, thank you. Second by Deb, and then any questions?
I just had a quick question. I
Yes, Kelly.
forgot to mention it. We were talking about the policy earlier. There was a comment that we received about, it was more about the CAP. So more SAU 70. I just want to make sure that somebody had responded to that concern. No? Okay.
I sent a response just thanking them and that it would be discussed
Okay,
at some point.
great. Okay.
That we were reorganizing and it would be brought,
Perfect.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I didn't, that was it, but
Okay.
yeah.
super. Thank you.
And her role as SAU chair.
Yeah.
A climate action plan related to sustainability. Like, we do have several CAP definitions.
Come up with SAU 70.
Yeah.
Okay, Carrie, do you have a question?
Just,
I was just gonna fill her in.
she was
Okay.
giving me information and I didn't hear anything,
Okay.
but I got it.
Any other discussion on those in motion? Seeing none, we need to do a roll call vote since Michael is with us virtually, starting with Neil.
Bell, yes?
DeBlasio, yes.
McConnell, yes.
Daconia, yes.
Nice.
Delozer, yes.
Hartman, yes.
Christie, yes.
Nelson, yes?
Russell, yes.
And Garrett Palm does not vote in the Dresden, specifically to Dresden. However, he is our current Norwich chair, is my understanding, and an
Yes.
awesome bloke. All right, Michael.
Costa, yes.
Thank you, Michael. And we'll move on to report of the chair. I am new to this position as of 49 minutes ago, so I have nothing to add except thank you for your support. However, it's my understanding that our preceding chair has both an announcement and some comments she would like to make. So, Kim.
I do, so have a little bit so you can get comfy. It is bittersweet to announce that I will be resigning my position as school board member effective the end of this month. The past 6 years has been, I think that's gonna get emotional because I'm pretty happy about it. But yeah, no, the past 6 years have been an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful to have served our school during this time. Oh, no, it's long.
Do you want me to read it?
You want me to read it?
You can just
No,
try.
No, genuinely, I look forward to taking a break. But I also look forward to seeing the fresh perspectives and energy from new board members and staff during the school year. I wanted now just to take a little bit of time to reflect on the progress we've made together. We are so focused on efficiency, we don't often walk down memory lane enough, and so here's a little bit of memory lane. I'm the worst at special occasions.
Or the best.
All right. So I was appointed to the board in spring 2019, and in this time, we as a board, and really I'm including all this in boards, I'm not doing this again. One of the first things we did, we established a committee at the Ray School in Hanover, and we fixed the food service delivery problem. We, if those can remember at the time, we no longer have our principal regularly serving meals due to staffing shortages. We have fewer complaints about food quality, although I'm sure there are some complaints.
Actually, no.
Less food waste, and we're closer to achieving a break-even food budget, which is our goal. It was also the most delicious committee I have ever served on. We asked the finalists to prepare food for us to sample.
That was fun.
Another thing, so we've drafted so many school board policies. One of my first committees was chairing the SAU 70 policy committee. I got looped into the you should do this early. It was a great opportunity to discuss school and legal issues, and I encourage all board members to serve on the committee at least once. My most cherished memories come from our discussions about policy IMG, that is the Animals in Schools policy. I still remember former school board member David Sobel, he's a veterinarian, correcting the policy language in an open board meeting saying, owl feces should really be owl pellets. And this is proof that any background can be useful on. After years, really decades of discussion, the Dresden School District can finally have a middle school athletics program. We have fixed infrastructure and maintenance issues such as the high school track, turf, and baseball fields, and improved IT capabilities across the district. Hopefully we will never have to go virtual, but if we do, we have better capabilities now. We have made Hanover sixth graders officially part of Dresden, which has smoothed budget fluctuations and increased budget transparency. And every warrant article the Hanover and Dresden boards proposed over the last 6 years has passed. And I'm so proud of how much our community supports our public schools. In Hanover, our budget article routinely passes with over 90% of the public in support, often in the mid-90s. We as board members should never be complacent about this support, and we should never forget how critical, strong, well-funded public schools are to our community. Whether by life or by death, since 2019, we have gained a stronger connection to the changes in state and federal public education. We have invited representatives to speak and made even our own presentations and resolutions about the latest bills and department actions. Over this last 6 years, this really has been a change to be a school board member. The center of gravity for public education is shifting in both states towards stronger state control over our historically shared value of prioritizing local control, really in both states. As a result, school boards will likely have less decision-making over time and will need to react instead of decide. We need to adapt to changes made in our state capitals. It will be important for us board members to continue to track these changes, perhaps maybe in a more formalized way than we have before, maybe establishing a committee or a board member liaison role or something. It's different. We have developed a four-pronged strategic plan. We're thinking longer term, setting goals, something when I first joined, we could only dream of doing. And we've made progress toward each of these goals in our budgets and policies this year. I look forward to seeing this framework adapt as we move forward. And then we made shifts in our budget development process, which I really won't bore you with the details because I can't think of a more boring topic than a municipal budget process. However, managing a government's budget does seem to be making more national news lately, so maybe trendsetters. And I'll say that the finance realm is really where I where my role on the board seemed to focus most. I have chaired the Dresden and Hanover budget committees every year I have been on the board. And most of those years, I've also served as chair of the SAU 70 budget committee, the school board liaison to the Hanover Finance Committee, which also is technically the acting Dresden Finance Committee, although there could be more to that, and the town of Hanover's Capital Improvement Program Committee. And during one of my early days on the board, I asked the Hanover Finance Committee to make a list of recommendations about how the school board should improve the budget process. They graciously did, and they presented their recommendations to the Hanover board. Do you remember that? I remember that. And I'm proud to say that the board and administration listened and made those changes based upon the recommendations and other ideas. And since then, we've provided stronger guidance on budget guidelines, setting a range or cap compared to an inflation metric, and explaining known district increases and desired strategic initiatives at the beginning. We are thinking longer term and building capacity to develop capital investment plans. We are detailing key changes in the budget and are creating lists for future investments and divestments should budgets need to expand or contract. We are collaborating not only across the school districts, but also with the towns in joint meetings to spread out our initiatives over different fiscal years to smooth the tax rate and provide planning expectations to the district. I think I've often said to, the Ray School, this is your turn, right? We've kind of been taking turns on where we grow. We are building upon our retained and reserved funds to keep pace with inflation and district needs. We have page numbers on our budget documents. We are thinking about the broader economy and other factors impacting our community, and we're communicating to the public more efficiently with less cost, less paper cost, and in less time. And hopefully we are communicating more effectively about the budget and leveraging existing resources instead of just reinventing the wheel. Overall, we are in a better place today than 6 years ago from the local board's perspective. So a strong board can make a difference, but a board cannot make a difference without a strong administration guiding and supporting its decisions. Perhaps the vote I'm most proud of during my time is our decision to open for full-time in-person learning on the first day of school in August 2020 during COVID, while also providing a virtual option for students, families, and staff. I don't think we would have come to the decision as a board if not for the strong work encouraged by talented experts in public health and education on the committee who recommended the plan. At the time, public sentiment seemed to maybe hover around opening with a hybrid or virtual only. That seemed to kind of be the bell curve there. But fully opening seemed like such a big leap after schools were forced to close in person in March. And this was not an easy decision to make, and it was an even harder decision to execute. So thank you to faculty, staff, and administration for that part. But I think, the research really shows it was the right call for our students, and we made it at the local level. And this is where I need to stop and appreciate the community we live in. Individually, we do not and will not agree on everything. It is impossible. School boards by design will not be as rigorous, transparent, expeditious, charitable, unanimous, or perfect as anybody, especially board members, would like. We are equal opportunity irritants at times. This is perhaps why our meetings are open to the public. It's so we can regularly get reminded of this design feature. However, what is special is that our community members in Hanover and Norwich are respectful, thoughtful, passionate, and solution-oriented. Serving this community has been a pleasure. And thank you to all the board members of the public who have been courageous and trusting to share their opinions. Ideas with the board. I know this is where like the Oscars starts playing the music, but my board experience would not have been as special without the following people, who I'd like to thank now. Sorry, Prince, me just walking in. First, the students, specifically the Hanover High School Council reps who served on the Dresden board. And I know this is March and 10th, so it's a terrible week for this, but Ella Tassoni, Joshua Sherns, Udiji Sharma, Kate McCall, Casey McGuire, Noah Phipps, and my first rep, Oliver Mitchell.
Some great names, Kim.
Your insightful comments and hard work on council provide important guidance to the board and give us hope for the future. To the faculty and staff, thank you for inspiring a love of learning in our students. Thank you for inviting board members to share your work, either via council or the classroom. And I took up an offer made by grade school teachers once to observe classrooms, and it was a really great experience. And I recommend, especially new board members, to spend some time inside our buildings at one point to see how it works, see where the things break, see where the students hover, just it's a really great experience. And I'd like to extend my sincerest gratitude and apologies to the custodial team, who often wait for us to finish these long meetings before they can come in and clean this room. Thank you for your late night work, and I'm so sorry that this Adrian Brody level Oscar speech thing is not helping you tonight. But the same apologies go to Jam. Thank you for taping our meetings so that the public can participate, and for also not hitting the mic on button too early. And to Ryan, her name's already been mentioned multiple times tonight, but Ryan's job title is officially the administrative assistant to the superintendents. But her title really should include every board member's name on that, as she makes our board meetings happen from start to finish, from drafting agendas to warning meetings, to turning edits on policies, to posting board materials, to taking minutes, to reminding us of everything else we forgot to do in between. We would really be lost without her. And in case she does not hear enough, thank you. Rayanne, it made me so happy to hear that you decided to run for office in your town, because you really are our leader here. So speaking of elected officials, even another neighboring school board member, to Jamie, our business administrator, thank you for the countless hours that you spent teaching me about public education finance. Yeah, everything I know is because I asked you a question and you answered it. Your dedication to and passion for your job is really unmatched. And you rightly deserve the Business Administrator of the Year award. Thanks. Yeah, I could go on, but I know you don't want me to. I know you would rather say like, all thanks should go to my team and not me right about now. It's probably what you're thinking, and agreed. Huge thanks to the finance team, Kari Asmus as well, our unofficial finance team member, and you. To our principals, Lauren, Julie, and Tim, thank you for your leadership. You are our fearless team captains. Preparing budgets each year is no small task that takes team coordination across the school. Recruiting, developing, and retaining talent also falls on your plate, as nearly everything else does as well. And I'm so grateful for your work to make progress on our strategic goals. Highly capable principals make for easy board work. So thank you. And to Robin, our assistant superintendent, thank you for choosing to onboard this new position at the beginning of a pandemic, because I couldn't have thought of a better COVID czar than you. even though I think we said we hired you to do curriculum development, yeah, like, well, sorry about that. But I am looking forward to your curriculum update later tonight. And really to Jay, our superintendent, I really don't know how you do it. The job of a superintendent is a really tough gig. You find solutions to impossible problems. You calm the eyeless storms. Your professionalism and carefully crafted emails and work and speeches set the bar way far too high for us board members. And we wish you and your team the very best in your public education stewardship and advocacy.
Can you make it easy?
So to my fellow board members, both current and past, I have learned something from each and every one of you. And we have laughed at every meeting, which is really important. Because we don't do it for the Benjamins, right?
We don't?
Maybe a Benjamin. So it's not always fun work, but you all really make it fun. And so please keep it up. And even when the times are tough, just remember to laugh. And so, and thank you to my family for allowing me to have our support. I mean, all of our families support us in these boards. I think we've all missed countless dinners and bedtimes, and I really look forward to making all of that up soon. And I will end and say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Kim. We've been on the board together almost the entire time at the same time, and I think it's safe to say that all of the board members and all the administration will miss you both personally and professionally. And I look forward to trying to drag you back in here next year.
Oh, we're gonna be calling.
So,
I would love it if you would share your remarks, at least with me, because I thought they were really quite wonderful and they will be a good reminder as we move forward.
Did ad lib a couple.
That's okay.
You can edit it.
That's what I want.
and for the folks who walked in, this is the Dresden board meeting, which is the middle school and the high school. We are running a little behind for the SAU meeting, which will be coming after this. We do have a hopefully brief non-public we'll need to go to in between, but we will be here eventually. Jay.
I feel a little shortchanged in that we can't put together all those whereases on a wonderful resolution.
We'll do it next meeting.
We'll do it
the
next
same
meeting.
favor for you, for all the
Yeah.
things you've done for us.
We'll try to get something together.
We'll do it next meeting.
If possible.
It's always a fine line between this particular board service and being an employee of the district. The amount of work that you personally have done for this board, for all these boards is, I've never seen anything like it. So I want to thank you for everything you've done during your tenure. It's huge and it's really, really appreciated.
Thank you, Cal.
Thank you all for that. I can't follow that up, but we'll try to keep moving along. Has there been any committee reports apart from council since the board last met, especially with the election? Not aware of any immediately offhand. Wait, CSDC did meet today, I believe.
We did.
Any updates of amendment notes?
I mean, we
Central
had a-
Staff Development Committee.
Thank you.
It was a brief meeting. There was a presentation from somebody who completed the work done to rise to step 7. And then there was a second proposal that we decided we actually didn't really need to see because it's for a PhD program.
Okay, noted. Any other committee reports that need to be discussed tonight? Seeing none, Jay, what do you have for us?
I have submitted a written report. I actually put a heading on it that's both for SAU 70 and for the Dresden School Board. Really, just two things I shared in that, and the one I'll talk about just briefly is we had a parent reunification. It's called tabletop exercise. We actually did a walkthrough of what it would look like if we had an emergency situation that required evacuation from our buildings, or if we had a situation in a building that was an emergency situation that required reunification of parents and students. And it was, again, it was an initiative really on the part of Lieutenant Matt Ufford from the Hanover Police Department, supported by the Norwich Police Department, and pushed along by Karen Wright, our communication specialist, who's doing her best to coordinate our activities around student, and schools safety. But it went really, really well. And the follow-up conversations that are right now being digested in an after-action review will be used to do further training in this area, but it went really, really well. We can't share all the details of our responses to
Yeah.
crisis situations like that. But we will be, part of this will be our communication in more general terms with the public about what would happen if we did have a major emergency, how reunification would work. And again, just reminding parents just how important it is to wait for communication from the school system before showing up at school or flooding our bandwidth with phone calls. We'll remind people of that because that's so important in a real emergency. So that's my report for tonight.
Any questions for Jay from board members or the public? Seeing none, Jamie or sorry, Robin, Assistant Superintendent's Reports. There you go.
Yes, I just want to say thank you to Kim for all of her work and time. I know it's been endless, but I really appreciate having your support and I'm really sad that you're leaving. So thank you for everything. I did submit my report tonight and I'm happy to answer questions. I know you have to hear from me in the next meeting about curriculum, so.
Anything for Robin at this moment? You can move right along to the business administrator's report. Jamie, Teresa, anything to add for tonight?
We submitted a report with both of our input.
Okay.
For Dresden, it's not that new and exciting because we just had a meeting a couple of weeks ago. So there hasn't been a lot of changes. We will get back on a quarterly schedule, which means after this March quarter ends, we'll bring financials in April and then bring them every month until we get to June. I'll defer to Teresa before doing so. I'll say I've enjoyed every single minute with you, Kim, and I'm so glad you stuck it out until I decided to. So I've learned as much from you as you even think you learned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any comments for Jamie and or Teresa? Okay, others will move along to, we do have a need for non-public tonight to discuss some tuition things as well as the nomination list for the middle school and high school for next year. So I will take a motion for board members in terms of item B for hiring, as well as for the right one for contracts or legal, which I believe is at EJ.
And tuition's K.
Tuition is K. Oh, that's why it's not there. Right, so motion under B and K.
I feel like Kim should do
You wanna do it,
for
Kim?
her last.
You're not late.
It's not my last, I still have a Hanover meeting. But I did the hard part. So move to enter into non-public session at 7:13 PM under RSA 91-A:3 to B and K.
Seconded by Deb, and we have to do this individually, starting with Neil.
Odell, yes?
Plus, yes.
McConnell, yes. Daytonia, yes.
Yes. Hartman, yes.
Christie, yes.
Nelson, yes?
Russell, yes.
And Michael?
Costa, yes.
Thank you all. We will be back in a couple minutes. And we are back in public session, and I'll take a motion to approve the teacher nominations. Deb,
I move to approve the 25-26 certified staff nomination list for both Richmond Middle School and Hanover High School as presented.
seconded by Lisa. Any discussion? Individually, they'll count for our folks on Zoom, starting with Neil.
Odell, yes?
Bless yes.
Yes.
DeConia, yes.
Hartman, yes. Christie, yes.
Nelson, yeah?
Russell, yes.
Michael?
Costa, yes.
And Keeney, yes, that is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. And now we're going to shift into a second possibility for the public to address the board. If any member of the public wishes to speak on something related specifically to the Dresden board, which is the middle school and high school, then we'll do so now. For folks on Zoom, you may raise your Zoom hand. Anyone? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right along then to, if you have any agenda topics for the next meeting, please let me know and send them to me. Otherwise, our next meeting will be on Tuesday, April 22nd. Can I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? Kelly,
To adjourn the meeting at 7:48.
seconded by Gina. Individually, one more time, starting with Neil.
Odell, yes?
Bless yes.
McConnell, yes.
DeConia, yes.
Hartman, yes.
Christie, yes.
Nelson, yes?
Russell, yes.
And Michael.
Costa, yes.
Thank you all. We are adjourned for Dresden, and I will have an SAU meeting, probably roughly 2 or 3 minutes for a brief bathroom break for those who need it. Thank you all for your patience and have a good night. And for folks on Zoom, that is a separate Zoom link, so please switch to the SAU